woman? D&D is the most popular piece of TTRPG media, and it's among the most influential fantasy settings of all time. It's not crazy to say it has become as influential as Middle-earth or Westeros, inspiring the creation of many books, games, movies, and TV shows. As well as being referenced in pop culture, many YouTubers create content on it or just play it for the hell of it. A magical world that inspires many to create worlds, characters, and stories with infinite potential, where you wouldn't believe the types of groups we get. When nerds from all around the world get together to make parties of fierce adventurers. And some of them record those spicy adventures for us to listen. Where you get to listen to this D&D podcast. The party has an edgy mean lesbian, and a melodramatic twink, and a muscle mommy, and a joke character. And get this! It's not good. In fact, it's so bad it killed many of people's interest in playing or even attempting to enjoy them again. And we can blame firstly... Critical Role needs no introduction. 40-year-old people who work on voice acting and other stuff. They are the door to a lot of people on TTRPGs as a whole. Unfortunately. Something that even Matt himself acknowledges. And speaking of Matt, him and Brandon are one of the key reasons why I am making this video. I have a lot of respect for Matt as a VA, coming from a fan of Resident Evil, Baldur's Gate, and of course, as the High Noon Man. But Matt is more known for his Dungeon Master skills, which deserves praise. Yes, I will absolutely talk smack about it, but it's undeniable that his approach as a DM is really inspiring. So much so that people ask for DMs like him. The voices he's able to pull off, the noises, and the sheer amount of quirky side characters. A signature move that destroyed people's expectations on role-playing as a whole. The more time passed, the more the internet craved to play theater kids TTRPG over epic stories. The demands for DMs like Matt sprouted the phenomenon of the Matt Mercer effect, which should be rebranded to the Internet TTRPG Podcast Effect or something like that. But it doesn't quite have the same ring, so scratch that. Newcomers over the past 10 years think D&D is meant to be a show, so many craving to have someone like him to plan games for them, to record and make it a show out of it, and so on. Not that there's anything wrong with it, except, as I said, most of them suck. Trying to capture the essence and becoming the next Critical Role. But even the mighty have fallen. They don't rock the same impact as back then. I'm not talking down on numbers. Pulling these views are still very impressive, and I wish I had them. But one of the many reasons for this fall comes from the fanbase cultivated by them. A fanbase that can't handle outside views, criticism, nor political takes aside from their echo chamber. And even CR doesn't matter addressing any of them. And the funniest part is that they dare say niche isn't allowed to exist. Media needs to be inclusive, that it branches for everyone. Everyone meaning themselves, for the matter. Full of LGBT PCs and NPCs. You see, gay characters aren't inherently bad. Some of my favorite stories and characters are indeed homosexual, like Elster from Signalis or Dorian from Inquisition. And Dorian is a phenomenal character through and through. Dorian Pavos is introduced in Dragon Age Inquisition as a Tevinter noble who has already rejected the life chosen for him. Born into a powerful family, Dorian was expected to marry a woman, produce heirs, and preserve the Pavos name. Tevinter didn't care that he was indeed gay, as long as he still fulfilled his duty. Dorian refused. He wouldn't live a lie, wouldn't trap a wife in a false marriage, and wouldn't pretend his happiness mattered less than tradition. To escape those expectations, he threw himself into magic, becoming a skilled mage, partly out of passion and partly a way to avoid being cornered into a political marriage. But his family didn't let go. His father eventually attempted to use blood magic to change Dorian's sexuality, not out of cruelty, but out of a twisted belief that he was fixing his son. When Dorian learned the truth, he left Tevinter entirely, choosing exile over erasure. If the Inquisitor romances him, Dorian's story finds somewhat of a resolution. For the first time, he's loved, openly and without any condition. Dorian can finally claim a future defined by honesty he craves and not obligation. That is but a page on this character's journey, and it's really damn good. Oh, but that's his character, and nah, that's good writing. Now flip to Mighty Nine. Half the cast gay, bi, whatever. Okay, but they shove it in your face. Molly waking up mid-threesome, Caleb's backstory with a chick and a dude, Yasha pines for a woman on her backstory, and yeah, I know Bo and Yasha will come eventually. Can you imagine being cut like this? God. People ripped old movies for toxic masculinity, with dudes constantly banging chicks, but this is the modern version. Explicit on the nose, priority over adventure. Fantasy needs to be versatile for them until these people make it about themselves, then it's okay. And by God, the fanbase and Wizards of the Coast force this down everybody's throats. Some will argue that these are mere surface level problems, that the pricing is worse, that the removal of OGL is a problem, or even the sanitizing of the lore is even bigger. And sure, there'll be a reason for the denting on the sales, but nothing kills presentation and interest more than visuals. First impressions matter more, way more. And let me tell you that all this, these are people bound by hate, masqueraded by cheerful diversity. It takes but one Google to find the many toxic stories on said fanbases. And this toxicity is the nastiest one, the toxic positivity one. The rotten root where cheerful masks hides the sharpest knives. Damn, that was poetic. Ones who always circles back to doxing and death threats. And all this extends far beyond the realm of D&D. The same ones that state to be the more sentient and wise ones are the same that dedicates their entire lives to rate a person's feet and what they wish to do with it openly online. Oh no. The same ones that when you don't use the correct pronouns for a character that doesn't even exist will condemn you and target you without the second thought. And this is a valve that leads us to something even worse, that destroyed fantasy as a genre. There are too many people in need of psychological help. Not the one of enablers, which I'll tackle in a minute, but genuine help with the insane desire to make every space a safe space. They'll scream and cancel their way into forced diversity and inclusivity while pushing away the same people who made that thing what it is. FNAF is a great example, full of psychos who hate the very creator of the franchise they spent so much money on. And of course, this part of the inclusivity has a deeper hole to dive in. I'm talking, of course, about... God, this part is hell. Fantasy is about fiction. I know, what a shocker.
Would you stop?
But projection is the fastest way to kill fun. You see, there's a strong reason why we use stereotypes in stories. They are there for a reason, to give meaning, to overcome something or someone. And stereotypes are a rule of smart storytelling. And world building. Goblins are associated with greed. Orcs are a symbol of wrath. Succubi are obviously lust. Dragons are prideful creatures. Mimics are slothy. Banshees are envious ghosts. Yenegus are gluttonous for carnage. And so on. I'm sure many could apply here for different reasons. But the point is that world building needs this for it to exist. Friction amongst creatures, races, kingdoms. Otherwise it's not a story, not even a fun fiction, it's just boring. And when not only the monsters are stripped away from their known characteristics, but rather put on situations of comparison towards reality, damn, you killed any interesting possibility available. The overwhelming amount of D&D playable creatures from enemies to heroes diluted that by asking for humanization, but this isn't entirely bad. Diversity inspires creativity, but somehow loses tension for sympathy. Elves and dwarves work because of their rivalry. If this element isn't present, then what's the point of different races? And when you humanize every monster or give them the grey villain treatment, we always come back to the human bad trope. Always with their pandering on shallow safety. What's the point of playing a half lion or half bird if you are just a quirky human with fur or feathers? Not to mention the desire to use and see orcs as minorities being rather peculiar? I'd argue orcs are the most mistreated species in fantasy, simply because they have been turned into allegories for racial prejudice, xenophobia, and... Is that vitiligo? What the fuck? I mean, just look at how orcs were and how they are now. Other well-known cases are the demons in Frieren or any Netflix show. Literal demons who were defended by those types of people for so long, claiming Frieren to be racist for stating the obvious. Demons bad, something that is constantly shown across the story. When it's shown how malevolent they can be, she specifically says that demons are just monsters who learned how to speak. Sometimes evil is just evil. There's no misunderstood part to it. If a creature can be good by nature, so can one be evil. And the constant need to show off the misunderstood point of creatures being an allegory for the oppressed, that can be dangerous to some extent. And when this conversation doesn't work, they try to flip it around and circle back to what I mentioned before, where demons become an allegory for that which they hate the most. In this case, they turn into white people bad. Homogenizing things like race and alignments in D&D as an attempt not to offend the easily offended has turned this hobby into an agenda full of checkmarks instead of a pleasant experience cherished by many. The reason for role-playing to be so good is the escapism. It's the only place where creative freedom can truly be met with a group of friends. But ideology and one's own insecurity projected onto a hobby is just the destruction of entertainment forever. Self-entitlement has crushed every fun in any media plausible. From games being unable to give you baddies, to ethical gooning, what can be categorized as good and evil. A game for everyone is a game for no one. And to finish this off, can we just say that one funny niche thing I watched a lot a couple of years ago were Crit Crab and Dan of the Drake. Two channels that covers a format where they read Reddit stories and give their opinions on them. And I really enjoyed their content, but as I was writing the script and hearing one of their vids, I realized something. Why the fuck do people enable so many psychopaths in TTRPGs? You don't even need to watch the videos themselves to understand the problems this medium has gathered. Just the titles themselves explain it all. From furries imposing their desires to wannabe next Critical Role and forced fetishes on games. It's a conglomerate of all the disgrace I have already pointed out. Liberal fatigue, people treating fantasy as a reality, using D&D as a therapy session and not as a therapeutic experience. One thing in particular I left out till now was the dissection of weird stuff in fantasy. Because when I saw so many people go mad with bare sex or demons, with tits and dicks in Baldur's Gate, I honestly thought that was just dumb. Because it's fantasy, and I still stand by that point. Fantasies are meant to live your dreams however you want. However, when we start to dissect the terrible world of the people who are into this, all that's left for me to question is why are there so many of them? And that's because people enable this behavior. People normalize fantasies onto reality. We live at a time where we treat fiction as reality and reality as fiction. D&D, TTRPGs and fantasy can be anything except safe. Fiction is built to challenge your morals, values, and make you feel things you can't in real life. It's a game we play with the same rules but in different ways. Where in one, there are murder hobos, other with noble knights, and that's the beauty in it. But when Wizards of the Coast panders on therapy and making sure no one feels offended or uncomfortable, and the same people gatekeep you afterwards with something you love, projecting real-life issues in fantasy, that's when fiction becomes just as insufferable as real life. And that is when we ask ourselves, who killed fantasy? Thanks so much for watching.